Yes. So I'm sharing now my presentation. Good morning, everybody. So I would like to present you the ESDA Solar Shading Database. So what is ESSO? Who is ESSO? This ESSO is the European body of the Solar Shading Trade Associations. We represent 18 countries. We have 10 national trade associations, and for the rest, leading companies in the other countries. So ESDA, why do we need it? Well, it's about credibility of shading properties information useful for the regulation and the profession. So ESSO has been involved in the EU QUALICHeCK program, which is about EPBD requirements on compliance and quality, and we want to present ESDA as a best case. So useful for education and for the profession. So first, to come to shading, what is shading today? So it's more than reduce of overheating. It's about saving on energy and cost for cooling, of course, to reduce overheating, but also as an extra insulation factor, just for heating, and also to reduce the artificial lighting. So that is about saving energy and costs. But on the other part, we think about increasing comfort, health, productivity, and well-being. So we like to present also solutions which are also maximizing the natural daylight entrance and also to keep the full color rendering of the transmitted light. And we also want to present solutions to reduce glare to filter the daylight. Just above also, of course, overheating to reduce. So today we don't think about shading as such anymore, but we talk about smart solar management that we want to integrate in the design of sustainable buildings. So therefore we have to think about the glazing and the shading together. So we have that mentioned in our position paper of 2015, which you can free download on our website, and which also includes a new study which has been conducted in 2014 about the energy savings of solar shading. So now we come to the subject itself. What is the issue with the compliance data of shading in EPB? So we see a lot of evolutions on innovation on the market with shading, but still there is a low appreciation of solar shading in the EPB calculation. We see that the presentation of shading properties performance vary widely and that there are questionings about the reliability of data. When you see the countries here, there's the full aspect of countries, we have now investigated 18 countries to give this overview. We see that compliance of shading means in EPB, of course, we are mentioned in it, but if we are mentioned always to prevent overheating, that's not always the case. And then the methodology being used, it's about indeed the G tot value or the shading factor, the FC value. But there we see that compliance can mean default values only, it can mean default values and actual values, or it can be actual values only. And we see also in the presentation of the default values that there's a lot of variety. When you compare, for instance, Austria and Belgium, you see, for instance, for the exterior shading factor in Austria, which is a value of 0.15, and in Belgium only 0.50. On the other hand, in Belgium, you can also present the accredited value of shading with then based on an external lab report. In Austria, you can also calculate it according to that standard. So in France, for instance, in Denmark, there you see that the evolution has also, this of the market, integrated into the EPB regulation. And you see, for instance, that automation is also included. As José said, indeed, shading is operating in a dynamic way. So we must provide also automatic scenarios, but that can be by a simulation tool, then connected to EPB calculation, or it can be in the calculation itself, but then it can become very complicated. So how to get a reliable database? Well, ESSO has reflected upon this and said, as a conclusion, we must present product values which are measured or calculated according to standardized methods. So according to the CEN standards now becoming ISO standards. The testing must happen also in independent labs with calibrated instruments, also according to standards. And the verification of the data has to be done by experts. So we have not invented the hot water again. There was already a kind of a database also funded by the European Union in the early years of 2000, and there was the glazing database of WIS, and we have connected on that and based our new database upon these old database, but then now updated. The submission must be done by manufacturers, the fabric, the materials or the slabs, and also the finished products. And there is also a peer review procedure. And don't misunderstand it, it's only a validation of data. So it's not to compare manufacturers' best performing product, because that is not the case. It will always mean a tailor-made solution. So we can only see the validation of data. The procedure steps, well, the manufacturers have to submit their data, and it will be according to a web tool, which is now being created and tested. They will present optical data and product ID data, and they will also present the samples with it. So here you see the optical data, this with indeed the wavelengths. It's about transmittance, and it's about also this reflectance data. And I will also present the product ID data, so also the appearance, the thickness, orientation, the conductivity, emissivity, and the infrared transmittance, which has also an importance. So you see that for fabrics, but also for slabs, where you have additional information on the width of the slab, the angles, the crown height, pitch, and so on. And also the product manufacturer can present the finished product with then also extra characteristics like the thermal resistance. So that comes to that result, and that will be then given under the output part of the database. So the procedure steps will be this, indeed the submission of the materials. It will be connected to a lab report that they have also to upload. And there will be also a reduced procedure for the manufacturer of the finished product because he will then connect to the materials which are already confirmed on the database. So we have an initial check which counts for 2 weeks to see the data are compliant and the format is correct. The tool will then pre-calculate the properties according to this, the simplified method of this EN 13363 standard, which is also becoming an ISO standard. And then we will have the pre-review with all the elements included as a data file, the table of the pre-calculated values, spectral curves, the sample of the materials, and also the reports. So the peer review will be done by a peer review committee. 2 of them will then be selected, but the data will also be open for all the peer review members to connect if there is a need to. The data proof will be presented, and if the manufacturer wants to present himself the measurements because he is doing it according to the standards, he may do that, but then we will ask 5% of his products to present also by an external web report to have a cross-checking with it. So all in all, it will be a 6 weeks procedure, and we will also provide a procedure for resolving matters. So the proposed data outputs will be about G and U values and the visible properties values, and these inputs can then connect to the national building codes or the EPB calculations, can also connect to product databases, to the BIM, to building assessment methods, to building modeling, maybe also to an energy label in the future, who knows, but there are many possible outputs. And the target groups, of course, the industry has to participate. We have already 16 companies interested. We have the building developers, of course, to use the database because it will be free, accessible for with the output data. The building simulators can also integrate it in their programs, and we have already a Swedish program which will be connected to it. And the EPB regulators, of course, to recognize, and most of all, the consumers to trust. We have identified the labs which are accredited now for shading, and we see there are not many, and we hope in the future to have more. So we have to indeed identify this more. We see, for instance, in other countries that universities are also dealing with measurement of shading, but they are not accredited yet. And we will set also up interlab comparison discussions on it. So the status now is the pre-launch has been made to see if there is enough interest by the industry. The peer review members are appointed. There is now a web tool running, but in a test phase to see if everything is going well with the submission. And the peer review will start up as from July. So the first output we'll expect will be online in August. And there is a demo for the submission will be shown at the end of the session. And we will also prepare an education tool connected to it. So that will be just the website, where the manufacturers can log in and where they can have a password, and then they start their submission, and they will also have a guide. On longer term, we have also the purpose to connect with the United States, with Australia, to really come to an international reliable database, because they are already interested in it, and we want to go for more complex modeling connected to it, because indeed shading is dynamic, and the first start of it is the reliable data of the shading itself. So I can here very quickly give this database, how it will look like. There you can see, but it's only in a demo phase. There's all the, I would say, the output is not correct there, but it's only to see what it will be. And for instance, you see here, then you can then select what you want, but I must say all the data here are not correct. It will only start up as from end of August. So that is my presentation. I give the floor back to Alexander now.